CEO panics when the system crashes. Then a black kid walks in and shocks everyone. I never thought walking through a door could break an entire company. But that's exactly what happened on the worst Friday of my life. My name is Amira Bell, and I'm 11 years old. Today was supposed to be simple: shadow my mom at work for a boring school assignment about a day in the workplace. While my classmates got to follow doctors and firefighters, I was stuck watching my mom check ID badges at Corelinx Technologies, some cybersecurity company downtown. "You sure about this, baby?" Mom asked as we rode the bus that morning. Her security guard uniform was perfectly pressed, and her name tag, Latasha Bell, caught the sunlight streaming through the window. "It's just gonna be me sitting at a desk all day. Not very exciting for your report." I adjusted my backpack straps and shrugged. "It's fine, Mom. Maybe I'll learn something cool about computers." She laughed. "Honey, I just check badges and walk around. I don't know anything about their fancy computer stuff." But I did. At least I thought I did. Since I was 8, I'd been teaching myself to code through free online courses and library computers. Python, JavaScript, basic network stuff, anything I could get my hands on. Not that anyone at school cared. To them, I was just another black girl from the South Side who talked too much about computers. Corelinx Technologies was buzzing when we arrived. The lobby was packed with people in expensive suits, all looking nervous and excited at the same time. Big screens everywhere showed their company logo and countdown timers. Something important was definitely happening today. "Morning, Latasha," called Janet from the reception desk. She was a sweet older white lady who always remembered my name. "And there's our little genius. How's the coding going, Amira?" I smiled politely. "Good, thanks." Mom set up at her security station while I found a quiet corner with a good view of everything. I pulled out my notebook, not for the assignment, but filled with my own code sketches and network diagrams. Drawing helped me think. That's when I saw him stride through the lobby like he owned the world. Roger Langston, the CEO. Even I knew who he was from the company newsletters Mom sometimes brought home. Tall, white, probably 50, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. A crowd of nervous employees followed behind him like baby ducks. 2 hours until the presentation. His voice boomed across the marble floor. "Our AI-based firewall is going to revolutionize cybersecurity. This launch has to be perfect. We've got investors flying in from Silicon Valley, and they're expecting to see the future of digital protection." A young woman with a tablet was practically jogging to keep up. "Yes, sir. All systems are green. The developers ran final tests this morning." "Good. This firewall technology will put Corelinx on the map. No more being the little startup that could. After today, we'll be the company that did." I watched them disappear into the elevator, heading up to what Mom had told me was the fancy presentation hall on the 15th floor. The energy in the lobby was electric. People kept checking their phones, adjusting their ties, smoothing their skirts. Everyone looked like they were about to explode from excitement or nerves. I opened my notebook and started sketching the lobby layout, noting the security cameras and the server room door Mom had pointed out during previous visits. It was just a habit. I liked understanding how systems connected to each other. Mom was chatting with another security guard when I decided to explore a little. Just a quick walk around the first floor, nothing major. She told me to stay close, but she didn't say I couldn't move at all, right? I slung my backpack over my shoulder and headed toward the main hallway, past the employee break room and toward the elevator bank. The building felt different today, more tense, more alive. Like everyone was holding their breath. That's when I noticed the small crowd gathering near the stairwell. Employees were whispering to each other, looking worried. I caught fragments of conversation. "System acting weird this morning. Probably just pre-launch jitters. Never seen error messages like that." My stomach twisted. Error messages? I moved closer, trying to look casual. And then I took my first step into the main corridor. The moment my sneaker touched the polished floor, every alarm in the building went off at once. Sirens blared from every direction. Red emergency lights flashed. Computer screens throughout the lobby started displaying the same terrifying message. System breach detected, all networks compromised, lockdown initiated. People started screaming. Elevators stopped working. Keycards stopped opening doors. And from somewhere high above us came the sound of panicked voices and running feet. Mom's radio exploded with chatter. Security to command center. Complete system failure. We need all hands up here now. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Everyone was running around me, but I couldn't move. Because deep down, in a place I didn't want to admit existed, I wondered if this was somehow connected to me. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because for the first time in my life, I was in the right place at exactly the right moment to see what was really happening. And what I was seeing didn't look like an accident. It looked like a fight. I followed the crowd of panicked employees up the emergency stairs, staying far enough behind Mom that she wouldn't spot me. My legs burned by the time we reached the 5th floor, but I had to see what was happening. The sounds coming from above were getting worse, shouting, cursing, and the constant wail of alarms. The command center was pure chaos. Through the glass walls, I could see at least 20 people crowded around massive monitors, all showing the same terrifying sight. Lines of red error messages scrolling so fast they looked like digital blood pouring down the screens. Years of code were corrupting in real time, and everyone was losing their minds. "This can't be happening!" screamed a woman with short blonde hair, frantically typing on 3 keyboards at once. "The entire firewall architecture is collapsing!" Roger Langston stood in the center of it all, his perfect suit now wrinkled, his face red with rage and panic. "How is this possible? We tested everything. The presentation starts in 90 minutes. A man in thick glasses, probably the CTO from the way everyone kept looking at him, kept shaking his head in denial. "It's just a glitch, Roger. Has to be. Our system is bulletproof. We built in 17 layers of protection." "Bulletproof?" A younger developer laughed bitterly, pointing at his screen. "Look at this. The attack is moving through our network like it knows exactly where everything is. This isn't random. Someone mapped our entire system." I pressed closer to the glass, watching the patterns of red text cascade across the monitors. Most people would see chaos, but to me, it looked almost organized. Like a dance. The error messages weren't random. They were following a sequence, hitting specific servers in a particular order. "The security feeds are going down," someone called out. "Main server, backup server, and the emergency systems. Everything's being locked out systematically." The CTO's voice cracked. "That's impossible. The only way to do that would be if someone had administrative access to." He stopped mid-sentence, his face going white. "To what?" Langston demanded. "To what?" "To the root code," the CTO whispered. "Someone would need access to the original source code from when we first built the system." A terrible silence fell over the room, broken only by the constant beeping of alarms and the clicking of desperate keystrokes. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. "Get me the IT leads," Langston barked. "All of them. Now!" "Sir?" A young man with dark skin and nervous eyes raised his hand. "Marcus and Jennifer are trying to access the backup systems, but they're locked out too. Whatever's happening, it's got root-level access." I watched Langston's face cycle through anger, fear, and something that looked almost like guilt. He kept running his hands through his hair, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "This is corporate espionage," he announced suddenly. "Has to be. Some competitor is trying to destroy us right before the launch. Call the FBI. Call everyone." But I could see what the adults couldn't. The patterns on the screen weren't the work of some outside hacker trying to steal information. This was personal. This was revenge. The way the attack moved through their system, it was like someone who knew exactly where to hurt them was systematically destroying everything they built. I pulled out my notebook and started sketching what I was seeing. The attack wasn't trying to steal data or hold it for ransom. It was pure destruction, aimed at humiliating Corlinks at the worst possible moment. Someone wanted to watch this company burn. "Can we isolate the main servers?" Langston asked desperately. "Already tried," called out a woman from the far corner. "Whatever's in our system, it's replicating faster than we can contain it. It's like it knows our countermeasures before we implement them." That's when I noticed something the adults had missed. In all their panic, they'd left the command center door slightly open. I could see inside clearly, and more importantly, I could see the specific error codes flashing across the nearest monitor. My heart nearly stopped. I recognized those codes. Not because I was some kind of super genius, but because I'd seen them before, in a forum post about advanced hacking techniques. The signature was distinctive, a specific way of formatting the attack that was almost like a digital fingerprint. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. It was where I'd seen those codes, and who had shown them to me. Uncle Marcus. Mom's brother, who taught me my first programming lessons before he died 2 years ago. He'd worked in cybersecurity too, and he'd shown me that exact signature during one of our coding sessions, explaining how hackers sometimes left calling cards in their work. "This style," he'd said, pointing to his laptop screen. "It's very specific. Only someone with serious skills would code an attack this way. And they'd only do it if they really wanted everyone to know it was them." I stared at the error messages scrolling across Corlinks' screens, and a horrible realization started forming in my mind. This wasn't just any revenge attack. This was personal. Very personal. And somehow, it was connected to my uncle. I backed away from the command center, my mind racing. Uncle Marcus had been deceased for 2 years. There was no way he could be behind this attack. But those error codes, that specific signature, it was too much of a coincidence. I found a quiet spot in the hallway and pulled out my notebook, flipping past pages of Python functions and network diagrams to find a clean sheet. My hands were shaking as I started sketching what I'd seen on those monitors, trying to recreate the pattern of the attack. Since I was 8, coding had been my escape. While other kids played video games, I worked through JavaScript tutorials. While they watched cartoons, I learned about network protocols from free online courses and community coding clubs at the library. Mom always worried I was too serious for my age, but learning felt like solving puzzles, and I was good at puzzles. Uncle Marcus had been the one who got me started. He'd worked in cybersecurity before he died, and during our Sunday visits, he'd sit with me at his laptop, showing me how systems talk to each other, how data moved through networks like cars on a highway. "The beautiful thing about code, Amira," he used to say, "is that it always tells a story. Even when people try to hide what they're doing, their style shows through. It's like digital fingerprints." Now, staring at my sketch of the attack pattern, I could see the story it was telling. This wasn't random destruction. The hacker was hitting specific servers in a precise sequence, like they knew exactly how Corlinks' system was built. But more than that, they were leaving breadcrumbs, subtle hints that this was personal. "Amira!" Mom's voice cut through my concentration. She was hurrying down the hallway, looking frantic. "Baby, what are you doing up here? I told you to stay in the lobby." "Sorry, Mom. I just wanted to see what was happening." I closed my notebook quickly, but not before she caught a glimpse of my sketches. "What's all this?" She sat down beside me on the hallway bench, pointing to my drawings. "Just patterns I noticed." I opened the notebook again, showing her the diagram I'd been working on. "Mom, this attack, it's not what they think it is." She frowned at my sketch, probably seeing nothing but lines and boxes. "Honey, these are grown-ups with college degrees trying to figure this out. I don't think." "No, listen." I grabbed her arm, suddenly desperate to make her understand. "Remember how Uncle Marcus always said hackers leave signatures? This attack has one. It's not just trying to steal information or ask for money. Someone's destroying the company on purpose, right before their big presentation." Mom's expression softened the way it always did when I mentioned Uncle Marcus. "Baby, your uncle taught you a lot, But this is serious business stuff. We should probably get out of here and let the professionals handle it. But I couldn't let it go. The pattern was too clear, too familiar. I flipped to a page in the back of my notebook where I'd copied some code samples from online forums, places where hackers sometimes shared techniques, usually for educational purposes. Look at this, I whispered, showing her a diagram I'd drawn months ago after finding a tutorial on something called cascade injection attacks. This is the same style. Someone who really knows what they're doing wrote this attack, and they wanted everyone to know it was them. Mom studied my drawing, then looked back toward the command center where we could still hear shouting and the sound of keyboards being pounded in desperation. Amira, even if you're right about this pattern thing, what does it matter? You're 11 years old. These people aren't going to listen to you. That's when it hit me like a lightning bolt. The USB drive. Mom, I said slowly, remember that USB drive you found? The one you've been keeping in your jewelry box? Her face went pale. How do you know about? I saw you put it there after Uncle Marcus's funeral. You said it had some of his work files on it, and you were keeping it safe. My heart was pounding. Mom, what if whatever's on that drive could help? She shook her head firmly. Absolutely not. I don't even know what's on that thing, and I'm not about to let you. But what if Uncle Marcus knew something about core links? I pressed. What if he worked here before? What if? Mom stood up abruptly. Amira Bell, that's enough. Your uncle never worked here. He worked for some contractor doing boring security stuff. And even if that drive had something useful, which it doesn't, you're not getting involved in this mess. But I could see it in her eyes. She was remembering something, some details she'd never shared with me. Uncle Marcus had died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 9. And Mom had always been vague about the details of his work. She'd said he was stressed about his job, that there had been some kind of problem at work that was eating at him. Mom, please. Just tell me the truth. Did Uncle Marcus ever mention core links? She was quiet for a long moment, looking down the hallway toward the chaos in the command center. Finally, she sighed. He mentioned them once, she admitted quietly. Said they treated him unfairly, that someone there had blamed him for something he didn't do. But baby, that was years ago, and your uncle is gone. Whatever happened between him and this company, it's over. But I knew it wasn't over. The attack happening right now proved it wasn't over. Someone was finishing what Uncle Marcus had started. And I was the only one who could see it. I took a deep breath and stood up, clutching my notebook against my chest. Mom, I have to try to help them. Amira, no. Her voice was firm but scared. This is not a game. These are serious people dealing with serious problems, and you're just a kid. But I'm a kid who understands what's happening. I could hear my voice getting louder, more desperate. Mom, please. Just let me show them what I figured out. If I'm wrong, what's the worst that could happen? They tell me to go away. She looked toward the command center, where the shouting was getting worse. Through the glass walls, we could see people running between computers, their faces twisted with panic. The red error messages were still cascading across every screen like digital waterfalls. 5 minutes, she said finally. You get 5 minutes to show them your drawings, and then we're leaving. Deal? My heart jumped. Deal. We walked toward the command center together, Mom's hand protectively on my shoulder. The closer we got, the more I could hear the desperation in the adults' voices. 43 minutes until the presentation, someone was yelling. The investors are already in the building. Can we present without the system? Are you insane? The whole presentation is about demonstrating our firewall technology. Roger Langston was pacing like a wild animal, his expensive suit now completely wrinkled, his hair sticking up in all directions. When he saw us approaching, his face twisted with annoyance. What are you people doing here? This is a restricted area. Mom stepped forward, her security badge visible. Sir, I'm Latasha Bell, building security. My daughter thinks she might be able to help. The entire room went silent. 20 pairs of adult eyes turned to stare at me, and I felt my confidence evaporate like water on hot pavement. These were people with college degrees, with years of experience, with salaries bigger than Mom's yearly income. What was I thinking? Langston's laugh was sharp and mean. Your daughter? How old is she? 8. 11. I whispered, then cleared my throat and said it louder. I'm 11. The laughter that followed made my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Some people tried to be polite about it, covering their mouths, but others openly chuckled. One man in a polo shirt actually slapped his knee. That's adorable, said the blonde woman who'd been typing frantically earlier. But sweetie, this is grown-up work. Why don't you go draw some more pictures while the adults fix this? My hands were shaking as I opened my notebook. I know you don't want to listen to me, but I think I know what kind of attack this is. I held up my sketch of the error pattern. See? It's not random. It's following a specific sequence, hitting your servers in order of importance. The CTO glanced at my drawing and shook his head dismissively. Kid, what you're looking at is just standard cascade failure. When one system goes down, it takes others with it. No, I said, my voice getting stronger. It's not cascade failure. Look at the timing. Each server is being hit exactly 37 seconds after the previous one. That's not automatic, that's manual. Someone is controlling this attack in real time. A few people exchanged glances, but most were already turning back to their computers. I was losing them. That's when Marcus Chin, a young developer sitting at a corner workstation, suddenly went completely white. He was staring at my notebook like he'd seen a ghost. Wait, he said quietly. Can I see that diagram? I hurried over to him, grateful that someone was actually listening. He studied my sketch for a long moment, then pulled up something on his computer screen. Oh my God, he whispered. This exploit code, I've seen it before. The room started paying attention now. Langston stormed over. What are you talking about, Chin? Marcus was typing rapidly, pulling up old files. This attack signature, the specific way it's moving through our system, it's identical to code we have in our archive. From 4 years ago. That's impossible, the CTO said. Our archive is encrypted and locked. No, you don't understand. Marcus's voice was shaking now. This isn't someone copying our old code. This is our old code. Someone with access to our archive is using our own security research against us. A terrible silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't an outside attack. Someone inside CoreLinks was destroying the company from within. Langston's face had gone gray. Who has archive access? Just the senior staff, Marcus said. You, the CTO, the head of IT, and... He stopped, his eyes widening. And who? Langston demanded. Marcus looked straight at me, then back at his screen. The original developer who wrote this code. A guy named Marcus Bell. But that's impossible because he's been deceased for 2 years. The room started spinning around me. Marcus Bell. Uncle Marcus. My uncle hadn't just mentioned CoreLinks, he'd worked here. He'd written the very code that was now being used to destroy the company. Wait, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Marcus Bell was my uncle. Every single person in that room turned to stare at me like I just announced I was from Mars. And that's when I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. Someone in this room had destroyed my uncle's life. And now they were about to find out I knew. The silence in the room was suffocating. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me like I was some kind of alien who'd just landed in their command center. I could feel my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Your uncle? Langston's voice was barely a whisper. His face had gone from red to white to a sickly green color. Marcus Bell was your uncle? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Mom stepped closer to me, her hand protective on my shoulder. I could feel her trembling too. That's impossible, the CTO said, but his voice lacked conviction. Marcus Bell died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Stress-induced, I said quietly, finding my voice. Mom always said he was worried about work problems before he died. Said someone at his job had blamed him for something he didn't do. The young developer, Marcus Chin, was frantically typing on his computer. I'm pulling up the old personnel files. Marcus Bell, senior cybersecurity developer, worked here from 2019 to 2021. He was, oh God. What? Langston demanded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He was fired for allegedly stealing proprietary code and selling it to competitors. But the investigation was inconclusive. No proof was ever found. Mom's grip on my shoulder tightened. I could feel her putting the pieces together, remembering Uncle Marcus's final months. The stress, the anger, the way he'd stopped talking about work altogether. Who filed the complaint against him? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Marcus Chin scrolled through the files. The complaint was filed by... He stopped, his face going pale again. By David Morrison, head of IT security. Every head in the room turned toward a man standing near the back wall. He was tall, thin, with graying hair and nervous eyes. David Morrison, the head of IT. The man who had archive access. That's ridiculous, Morrison stammered. I had legitimate concerns about security breaches. I was just doing my job. But I could see the guilt written all over his face. The way his hands were shaking, the way he couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Uncle Marcus had been innocent, and this man had destroyed his career to cover up his own failures. Mr. Morrison, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. If my uncle was guilty of stealing code, then why is his own code being used to attack your system right now? The room erupted in whispers. Morrison's face went from pale to red to purple. I don't know what you're talking about. The attack signature, Marcus Chin said, understanding dawning in his voice. It's not just using Marcus Bell's old code. It's using his personal coding style, his specific techniques. Someone who knew his work intimately is behind this. That's impossible, Morrison shouted. Marcus Bell is finished. But his code isn't, I said quietly. And someone with access to it is using it for revenge. Langston was staring at Morrison like he was seeing him for the first time. David, please tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying. The seconds ticked by. 35 minutes until the presentation. Red error messages still cascaded across every screen. And in the middle of it all, a terrible truth was becoming clear. I need to try something, I said, pulling out my phone. Mom, I need you to call Mrs. Patterson next door and ask her to go to our apartment. Amira, what are you? The USB drive, Mom. The one with Uncle Marcus's files. I need her to bring it here. Absolutely not, Langston interrupted. I'm not letting some kid plug random devices into our system during a crisis. Sir, Marcus Chin said quietly. With respect, your system is already destroyed. What's the worst that could happen? 20 minutes later, Mrs. Patterson arrived at the lobby with a small plastic bag. Mom went down to get it while I sat at a secondary computer terminal, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The adults watched me work, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed skepticism. The USB drive was small and black, with a piece of masking tape labeled MB backup files, in Uncle Marcus's careful handwriting. When I plugged it in, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely click the mouse. The drive contained dozens of files, but one caught my attention immediately. corelinks_original_architecture.zip. That's our original system blueprint, the CTO breathed. From when we first started the company. I opened the file and started reading through the code. It was beautiful, elegant, exactly the kind of work Uncle Marcus was known for. But there was something else. Comments in the margins, notes about security vulnerabilities, warnings about potential exploits. He documented everything, I whispered. Every weakness in your system, every potential attack vector. He was trying to help you fix them. But then why? Langston started to ask. Because someone didn't want them fixed, I said, my voice getting stronger as I understood what had happened. Someone wanted to keep those vulnerabilities secret so they could use them later. I kept digging through the files until I found what I was looking for, a folder labeled Insurance. Inside were email screenshots, recorded phone conversations, and detailed documentation of Morrison's real activities. Morrison hadn't been protecting Corelink's security. He'd been selling their vulnerabilities to competitors while blaming Uncle Marcus for the breaches. "Oh my God!" Marcus Chen said, reading over my shoulder. Morrison was the one stealing code. He framed Marcus Bell to cover his own tracks. Morrison made a run for the door, but Mom was faster. 3 years of security training kicked in, and she blocked his path with the kind of authority I'd never seen from her before. "The attack," I said, pieces clicking into place as I typed. "It's not random revenge. Someone's using Uncle Marcus's documentation to expose what really happened. They want everyone to see the truth." My fingers flew across the keyboard, using Uncle Marcus's notes to trace the attack back to its source. The IP address led to a server farm in downtown Chicago, registered to a company I'd never heard of. But the username logged into the system was one I recognized, Marcus Bell_Legacy. "Someone's finishing what Uncle Marcus started," I said quietly. "They're using his own code to prove he was innocent." And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A message window had appeared on the screen, addressed directly to me. "Hello, Amira. I've been waiting for you to find this. It's time to clear your uncle's name. Press enter to upload the evidence." My finger hovered over the enter key as the entire room held its breath. 23 minutes until the presentation. And I was about to change everything. I stared at the message on the screen, my finger hovering over the enter key. The entire room was silent except for the constant beeping of alarms and the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. "Who sent this message?" Langston demanded, but his voice sounded far away. I looked at the sender information and felt my world tilt sideways. The message came from an account registered to Sarah Chin, cybersecurity consultant. I turned to look at Marcus Chin, the young developer who'd been helping me. "Is Sarah Chin related to you?" I asked. His face went red. She's my older sister. She worked with your uncle at his previous job, before he came to Corelink's." "Marcus," Langston's voice was dangerous. "What exactly is your sister doing?" Marcus Chin stood up slowly, his hands raised like he was surrendering. "She's been investigating what happened to Marcus Bell for 2 years. When she heard about today's big presentation, she thought it was time for the truth to come out." "She's the one attacking us?" Morrison shouted from where Mom was still blocking the door. "She's destroying the company." "No," I said quietly, understanding flooding through me. "She's not destroying anything. She's exposing it." I pressed enter. Immediately, every screen in the command center changed. Instead of red error messages, detailed documents began displaying across all the monitors. Email chains showing Morrison selling security information to competitors. Bank records proving he received payments. And recordings of phone calls where he explicitly planned to frame Uncle Marcus for his own crimes. "This is all fabricated," Morrison screamed. "You can't prove any of this." But I could see the faces of everyone in the room changing as they read the evidence. The CTO looked sick. Langston looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And Marcus Chin looked like he finally understood why his sister had spent 2 years of her life seeking justice for a man she barely knew. The attack on Corelink's system suddenly stopped. The red alarms fell silent. Normal system functions began returning. And a new message appeared on the main screen. "The evidence has been uploaded to a secure server and copies sent to the SEC, FBI, and Technology Press. Corelink's Technologies has 15 minutes to publicly acknowledge the wrongful termination of Marcus Bell and the criminal activities of David Morrison, or this information becomes public immediately." Langston's phone started ringing. Then the CTO's phone. Then everyone's phones at once. "Sir?" A young woman burst through the door. "The investors are asking questions. Someone leaked information about security issues and internal investigations." They want to know if the presentation is still happening. I looked at the clock. 18 minutes until the presentation was supposed to start. In the chaos, I'd almost forgotten that hundreds of important people were waiting upstairs for CoreLinks to demonstrate their revolutionary firewall technology. Langston's face cycled through about 6 different emotions before settling on resignation. Call building security. Have Morrison arrested. And get our legal team on the phone. We need to figure out how to handle this. No, I said firmly. Everyone turned to look at me. You don't get to just handle this. Excuse me? Langston's eyebrows shot up. You can't just arrest Morrison and pretend this never happened. My uncle died because of the stress you people put him through. His reputation was destroyed. His career was ruined. And now you want to quietly fix it behind closed doors? Mom stepped beside me, her arm around my shoulders. What do you want, baby? I thought about Uncle Marcus, about the Sunday afternoons he'd spent teaching me to code, about the way his face lit up when I solved a difficult problem. He'd believed in justice, in doing the right thing even when it was hard. I want the truth, I said. All of it. Public statement, full explanation, and Uncle Marcus's name cleared completely. Done, Langston said quickly. We'll issue a statement, we'll apologize, And I want CoreLinks to fund a scholarship program for kids like me. I continued, surprising myself with my boldness. Kids who love computers but don't have the money for fancy schools or expensive equipment. Absolutely. Langston nodded frantically. The Marcus Bell Memorial Scholarship Fund. We'll announce it today. But something felt wrong about that. I looked at Mom, then at Marcus Chin, then at the screen still displaying evidence of my uncle's innocence. They still don't get it, I whispered to Mom. She squeezed my shoulder. What don't they get, baby? They think this is about charity. They think they can throw money at the problem and make it go away. I turned back to Langston. I don't want your scholarship fund. I don't want your photo ops or your press releases. Then what do you want? He asked, clearly confused. I want you to remember that an 11-year-old girl with a notebook solved a problem that your entire team of college graduates couldn't figure out. I want you to remember that the person you threw away was brilliant, and loyal, and innocent. And I want you to remember that there are probably a lot more kids like me out there who you're not paying attention to because we don't look like what you think smart people should look like. The room was completely silent. I could see some of the adults looking uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, avoiding eye contact. Marcus Chin broke the silence. The presentation, he said quietly. We still have a presentation to give in 15 minutes. Cancel it, Langston said. No, I said. Give the presentation. Show them your firewall technology. But tell them the truth about how you got it. Tell them about Uncle Marcus. Tell them about the real reason your security was compromised. And tell them that a 6th grader figured out what was wrong when your entire IT department couldn't. I walked over to the computer where I'd been working and started typing. Your system is restored. Your firewall is working. And you have a choice. You can do the right thing, or you can watch me walk out of here and let the press figure out the rest of the story on their own. Langston looked at the evidence still displayed on the screens, at Morrison being led away by building security, at the faces of his employees who were seeing their CEO's true character for the first time. Marcus Chin, he said finally. Please ask your sister to join us upstairs. I think she should be part of this presentation. I picked up my notebook and my uncle's USB drive. Come on, Mom. Let's go home. Wait, Langston called. Don't you want to see what happens? I turned back to look at him one last time. I already know what happens. The truth comes out. Justice gets served. And somewhere, Uncle Marcus is finally resting in peace. As we walked toward the elevator, I heard Marcus Chin call out, Amira! Thank you. For everything. I didn't answer. I was already thinking about my next coding project, and about how Uncle Marcus would have been proud of the girl who refused to be ignored. The elevator doors closed, and we headed home.